The stars looked different from Accord Prime. Taemin stood at his post outside the Grand Assembly Hall, watching the shimmer of distant galaxies through the massive observation windows. 3 months ago, he had been training on Earth. Now he wore the blue uniform of Coalition security, standing guard at the most important diplomatic summit in human history. He was 22 years old and felt every bit of it. Around him, veteran guards from a dozen different species moved with casual confidence. They had been doing this for decades, some for centuries. Their scales glinted under the soft lights. Their multiple eyes tracked movements with practiced ease. Their tall frames made Taemin feel small. He was the only human on the security detail. Private. Taemin checked his datapad for the 15th time that hour. The environmental readings bothered him. Tiny fluctuations in the air filtration system, barely noticeable, but there. He had mentioned it to Captain Ji-won during the morning briefing. The captain, a veteran of 40 years in diplomatic security, had smiled in that way that meant he thought Taemin was being foolish. Nervous energy, Captain Ji-won had said. Every rookie sees threats everywhere. The station has been swept 6 times. Relax. The other guards had laughed. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from experience watching young soldiers jump at shadows. Taemin had nodded and returned to his post. But the readings still bothered him. Inside the assembly hall, Ambassador Hyen was presenting humanity's case to the Coalition Council. The humans wanted access to shield technology, the kind that could protect Earth's colonies from radiation storms and meteor strikes. The older species were debating whether humans could be trusted with such advanced tools. Some called humans too aggressive, too unpredictable, too young as a spacefaring civilization. Only one voice had spoken strongly for humanity. Empress Hana of the Valoran Empire. Tae-min had seen her arrive that morning. She moved with quiet dignity, her silver robes flowing behind her like water. The Valorans were one of the founding species of the Coalition, and their Empress carried weight in every debate. She was tall, even by Valoran standards, with dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. Her advisor Sungwoo walked beside her, constantly whispering updates and briefings. When Empress Hana had passed Taemin's post, she had paused for just a moment. Their eyes had met. She had nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Then she was gone, swept into the hall by her entourage and security chief Commander Bora. That brief moment had meant something to Taemin. In a station where most aliens looked through him rather than at him, being seen felt important. His datapad chimed softly. Another fluctuation in the environmental systems. This one was in a different sector, but following a similar pattern. Taemin frowned and made a note. He pulled up the maintenance logs and cross-referenced them with the sensor data. Something did not match. Still worrying, human? A voice spoke beside him. Taemin turned to see one of the senior guards, a 4-armed species whose name he could never pronounce correctly. The guard's translator box rendered his speech into perfect English. You should learn to trust the systems. They have kept us safe for 30 years of peace. Yes, sir, Taemin replied. Just being thorough. Thorough is good. Paranoid is wasteful. The guard moved on, continuing his patrol route. Taemin returned to his datapad. Maybe he was being paranoid. Maybe this was just rookie nerves, like Captain Ji-won said. But his grandmother had taught him something important before he left Earth. She had survived the Tokyo collapse of 2298, when a residential tower had fallen during an earthquake. She had been trapped in the rubble for 16 hours. A stranger heard me calling, she had told him. Everyone else was running away from the building because they thought it would collapse more. But this one man, he came toward my voice. He dug through the rubble with his bare hands. When the rescue teams arrived, they found him still digging, his hands bleeding. He saved my life because he paid attention when others ignored the signs. That story had shaped Taemin more than any military training. Pay attention. Notice the small things. Act when others ignore their instincts. Summit continued through the day. Taemin's shift was 12 hours long. He watched diplomats come and go. Species he had only seen in textbooks now walking past him in reality. The debates inside the hall grew heated at times. Through the thick doors, he could hear raised voices, though the translator systems made it impossible to understand the words. Ambassador Hyen emerged once, looking tired but determined. He nodded to Taemin as he passed, heading toward the private meeting chambers. Behind him came Empress Ha and her small group of advisors. They were going to have a private discussion, a chance to build alliance away from the main council. Captain Ji-won assigned Taemin to stand guard outside the private chamber. It was a sign of trust, or perhaps just convenience, since he was already nearby. Taemin took his position beside the door and watched the corridor. For an hour, nothing happened. Then his datapad chimed again. Another fluctuation. Then another. Now the pattern was becoming clear. These were not random maintenance issues. Someone was systematically adjusting the environmental controls across multiple sectors. The changes were small enough to avoid automated alarms, but large enough to matter if they all activated at once. Taemin's heart began to beat faster. He pulled up a predictive model on his datapad, feeding in the pattern of changes. The computer calculated the most likely outcome. His blood went cold. If all these adjustments activated simultaneously, they would release a concentrated burst of nitrogen oxide into the Grand Assembly Hall. Nitrogen oxide was toxic to most coalition species. In high concentrations, it could be lethal. The timing would be tomorrow night during the grand banquet, when all the leaders would be gathered in one place. Taemin immediately opened his comm channel. Captain Ji-won, this is Private Taemin. I have detected a potential security threat. Request permission to Taemin. I am busy with actual security matters. Whatever you think you found, send it to my datapad, and I will review it when I have time. Sir, this is urgent. I believe there is a planned attack. Private, that is enough. Send your report through proper channels. Ji-won out. The comm clicked off. Taemin stood in the empty corridor, his datapad showing the evidence of sabotage, and no one willing to listen. He could send the report through official channels, but that would take hours to process. The evening banquet was in less than 8 hours. Inside the chamber, he could hear Ambassador Hyen and Empress Hana discussing terms of alliance. Their voices were calm, hopeful. They had no idea what was coming. Taemin made a decision. He would document everything he found and prepare his own response. If no one would listen to the human rookie, then the human rookie would need to be ready to act alone. He began running deeper scans, tracking every environmental change, building a complete picture of the threat. As the day turned to evening, and the station's lights dimmed to simulate night cycle, Taemin remained at his post. Other guards rotated out for rest. He volunteered to stay, claiming he was not tired. Captain Ji-won approved it without much thought. The corridor grew quiet. Inside the chamber, the meeting ended. Ambassador Hyen emerged first, looking satisfied. Empress Hana followed, and as she passed Taemin, she paused again. You have been standing here for many hours, young soldier, she said. Her voice was gentle, musical, even through the translator. Do you not need rest? I am fine, Your Majesty, Taemin replied. Just doing my duty. She studied him for a moment with those dark, intelligent eyes. I sense worry in you. Is something wrong? Taemin hesitated. Should he tell her his suspicions? Would she believe him when his own captain would not? Just being careful, he finally said. Empress Hana nodded slowly. Careful is wise. I hope your worries are unfounded. She moved on, Her security detail surrounding her Tay-Min watched her go and return to his scans. His worries were not unfounded. The evidence was clear now. Tomorrow would bring danger, and somehow he needed to be ready. The grand banquet hall of Accord Prime was beautiful in a way that took Taemin's breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen stars, and the walls were made of transparent aluminum that showed the galaxy spinning beyond. Tables were arranged in a great circle, with species from across the coalition sharing food and conversation. It was meant to be a celebration of unity. Tay-Min stood at his assigned position near the eastern wall, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. He had sent 3 more reports to Captain G1 throughout the day. Each one was acknowledged and filed away. Nothing had been done. The environmental systems still showed the same dangerous pattern of sabotage. At the center of the hall, Empress Hannah sat at the high table with the other coalition leaders. Ambassador Hyan was there too, representing humanity. The mood was good. The vote on the SHIELD technology agreement would happen tomorrow, and early counts suggested it would pass. People were celebrating early. Captain G1 stood near the main entrance, looking relaxed and confident. Around the hall, 20 other security personnel maintained watch. Most were from veteran coalition species, experienced guards who had protected these events for years. They chatted quietly with each other, comfortable in their certainty that nothing would go wrong. Tay-Min checked his datapad one more time. The environmental systems were reaching their critical point. If his calculations were correct, the toxin release would happen in the next 10 minutes. He opened his COM channel. Captain G1, I am detecting the environmental attack is about to activate. We need to evacuate the hall immediately. There was a pause. Then G1's irritated voice came back. Taemin, I told you to stop this paranoid behavior. There is no attack. You are disturbing the event with false alarms. Sir, please, just look at the data. Private, return to your post and maintain silence. That is an order. The comm went dead. Taemin felt frustration rise in his chest but forced it down. He had done everything he could through proper channels. Now he just had to be ready to react. 5 minutes passed. The banquet continued. Diplomats laughed and shared stories. Musicians played soft melodies in the corner. Everything seemed perfect. Ben Taemin's datapad flashed red. The environmental system had just released a massive surge of nitrogen oxide into the hall's ventilation system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then people began coughing. The coughs turned to gasps. Aliens who breathed oxygen suddenly found themselves struggling. The toxin was invisible but deadly, flooding the hall from every air vent. Panic started slowly, then exploded. Diplomats stumbled from their chairs, clawing at their throats. The musicians dropped their instruments. Security guards ran for the exits, their training forgotten in the face of poison. They could not fight, but the toxin was just the beginning. The main doors burst open with a crack of explosives. Through the smoke came armed figures wearing sealed environment suits. 14 of them, carrying weapons that crackled with blue energy. Neural disruptors, Taemin recognized instantly. Weapons designed to overload organic nervous systems. The attackers opened fire immediately. The energy bolts struck the fleeing security guards and diplomats. Bodies convulsed and fell. The neural disruptors were effective against most coalition species, and the guards had no defense. Captain G1 drew his weapon but was hit before he could fire. He went down hard, his body shaking. Other guards tried to fight back, but the combination of toxic gas and neural weapons was too much. Within seconds, most of the security force was disabled or fleeing. Tay-Min felt the neural disruptor energy wash over him as a stray shot hit the wall beside him. Pain exploded through his nervous system like lightning in his veins. Every muscle locked up. His vision went white. For a terrible moment, he thought he would fall like the others, but he did not fall. Human nervous systems were different from most coalition species. More resilient, more redundant, evolved to handle extreme stress. The pain was incredible, but Taemin could still move through it. His hands shook as he drew his sidearm, but they obeyed his commands. Through the chaos and smoke, he saw Empress Hana. She was still at the high table, frozen in shock. Her security chief, Commander Bora, was collapsed on the floor, unconscious from the neural weapon. Advisor Sunwoo was trying to pull the Empress towards safety, but he was weak from the gas, barely able to stand himself. The attackers were advancing through the hall, shooting anyone who moved. They were moving toward the high table, toward Empress Hana. Every instinct in Taemin's body screamed at him to run. The other guards were running. Captain Jiwon was down. This was not his responsibility. He was just a private, just a human, just a rookie who no one listened to. But he saw Empress Hana's face. He saw her fear. He saw that she was alone and defenseless. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. It came toward my voice when everyone else was running away. Taemin made his choice. He ran toward Empress Hana, not away. Each step was agony as residual neural energy burned through his system. His legs felt like they were filled with broken glass. But he ran anyway. Ambassador Hyun saw him coming. "Taemin, help us!" Taemin reached the high table just as the attackers turned their weapons toward them. He fired his sidearm, 3 quick shots that forced the attackers to take cover. Then he grabbed Empress Hana by the arm. "Your Majesty, we need to move now," he shouted over the screaming and weapons fire. Empress Hana stared at him with wide eyes. She was breathing hard from the gas, but her species was less affected than others. "My people are dead or running," Taemin said bluntly. "I cannot save everyone, but I can save you. We need to move." Another neural blast hit him square in the back. The pain was white-hot, absolute. Taemin's legs gave out and he fell to one knee. But he did not let go of the Empress. He used his body to shield her from the next shot. "Why are you not running?" Empress Hana asked, her voice full of confusion and something else. "Wonder, maybe. Someone has to stay," Taemin gasped. He forced himself back to his feet through sheer willpower. "Come on." He half-dragged, half-carried the Empress away from the high table. Advisor Sunwoo stumbled behind them, barely conscious. The attackers were closing in, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns. Professional soldiers, Taemin realized. Not random terrorists. This was a military operation. Across the hall, Taemin spotted a security station built into the wall. It was reinforced, designed as a fallback position. If he could get the Empress there, he could seal the door and buy time for reinforcements to arrive. The distance was 20 meters. It felt like 20 kilometers. Tae-Min fired his sidearm behind him without looking, just trying to keep the attackers cautious. His weapon's charge was dropping fast. The Empress was heavy, her robes tangling around both of them. Sunwoo collapsed halfway across, unable to continue. "Leave him," Empress Hana said, tears in her eyes. "Save yourself." "No one gets left behind," Taemin said. It was a human military saying, one he had learned in basic training. It meant something. It meant everything. He could not carry both of them. So he made another choice. He pulled the Empress forward, getting her closer to the security station. Then he turned back for Sunwoo. Neural fire hit him twice as he ran back. His whole body was screaming now, every nerve ending burning. He grabbed Sunwoo and dragged him forward. The advisor was unconscious, dead weight. 10 meters to the security station. The attackers were lining up clear shots now. Taemin's training took over. He moved in unpredictable patterns, making himself a harder target. He fired his sidearm one-handed while pulling Sunwoo with the other. 5 meters. His weapon ran dry. He dropped it and used both hands to move faster. 2 meters. An explosion rocked the hall as the attackers threw a concussion grenade. The blast wave hit Taemin from behind and threw him forward. He and Sunwoo tumbled through the security station door. Empress, Hana, was there. She grabbed Taemin's uniform and pulled him fully inside. Her strength surprised him. Then she slapped the door control, and the reinforced barrier slammed down, sealing them in. The barrier was strong, but not invincible. Already Taemin could hear cutting tools starting to work on it. The attackers were not going to wait. Tae-min rolled onto his back, breathing hard. Every part of his body hurt. His uniform was burned in 3 places where neural blasts had hit him directly. His hands were cut from broken glass. But he was alive. Empress Hana knelt beside him, her face close to his. "Why did you stay?" she asked again. "Why did you not run when the others ran?" Taemin looked into her eyes and gave the only answer he had. Because someone needed help. Because that is what humans do. Outside the security station, the cutting tools sparked and hissed. The barrier would not hold for long. Taemin checked his tactical display. Reinforcements were 8 minutes away. 8 minutes felt like a lifetime. He looked around the small security station. Limited medical supplies. No weapons except what he carried, which was nothing now. A basic environmental control panel. And one Empress who needed to survive the next 8 minutes. "We're going to be okay," he told her, trying to sound confident. "I promise." Empress Hana looked at this young human soldier, burned and bleeding but still determined. She touched his face gently. "I believe you," she said. The cutting tools burned brighter. The barrier was weakening. Taemin forced himself to sit up, ready for what came next. The security station was small, barely 4 meters across. Taemin pulled himself to his feet, using the wall for support. His body protested every movement. The neural weapon hits had done serious damage to his muscles and nerves. He could feel tremors running through his arms and legs. Empress Hana sat against the far wall, checking on Sunwoo. The advisor was breathing but unconscious. She tore strips from her silver robes to bandage a cut on his head. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, and Taemin realized she must have medical training. How long until help arrives? She asked. Tae-min checked his tactical display. 7 minutes and 40 seconds. The cutting torch on the door flared brighter. Molten metal dripped down the inside of the barrier. The attackers were making progress faster than he hoped. 7 minutes. He had to hold them for 7 minutes with no weapons and a body that barely worked. Tae-min looked around the security station with fresh eyes, the way his instructors had taught him. What resources did he have? The medical kit on the wall, the environmental control panel, the emergency comm system, a fire suppression system, the furniture, which was bolted down but could maybe be broken free. "Your Majesty," he said, "I need you to do something for me." Empress Hana looked up. "What do you need?" "Use the medical kit. There should be stimulant injections. I need you to give me one. Those are dangerous. Your body is already damaged from the neural weapons." "A stimulant could—" "I know," Taemin interrupted. "But I need to be able to move. I need to fight, please." Empress Hana stood and retrieved the medical kit. Her hands hesitated over the injector. "If you die protecting me, I will never forgive myself." "If I do not protect you, we both die," Taemin said simply. "This way, at least there is a chance." She pressed the injector against his neck. The stimulant hit his system like cold fire. His heart rate jumped. The tremors in his muscles stopped. The pain faded to a distant throb. He could move again, at least for a while. "Thank you," he said. The door began to glow red in a circle where the cutting torch focused. They were cutting an entry hole. Standard breach technique. Once the hole was big enough, they would throw in a grenade or shoot through the opening. Taemin grabbed the medical kit and threw it to Empress Hana. When they breach, stay low and cover your head. No matter what happens, do not look up until I tell you. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to? The door suddenly buckled. The cutting torch had weakened it enough that a heavy impact from outside bent the metal. They were not just cutting now. They were forcing entry. Tae-min moved to the environmental control panel. He pulled up the station's fire suppression system. With a few quick commands, he overrode the safety protocols. When that door opened, he would flood the area with fire suppressant foam. It would not stop the attackers, but it would blind them for a few seconds. 3 minutes, until reinforcements. The door buckled again. A gap appeared at the edge, just wide enough to see through. Taemin saw movement outside. Multiple attackers, positioned and ready. He positioned himself beside the door, pressed against the wall. When they came through, he would have one chance to even the odds. "Tell me something," Empress Hana said suddenly. "Why did you join the military?" Taemin kept his eyes on the door, but answered, "My grandmother. She taught me that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about doing what is right, even when you are terrified." "Are you terrified now?" "Yes," Taemin admitted. "But I am still here." The door exploded inward. The attackers had placed charges on the weakened section. The blast threw chunks of metal across the small room. Taemin triggered the fire suppression system. Thick white foam sprayed from ceiling vents, filling the doorway in seconds. Shouts of confusion came from the attackers as they suddenly could not see. Tae-min moved through the foam like a ghost. His hand found the first attacker's weapon and twisted it away. The neural disruptor clattered to the floor. Taemin grabbed it and fired point-blank into the second attacker. The rest of the attackers fell back, clearing the foam with sweeps of their arms. Taemin retreated into the security station, now armed with a captured neural disruptor. "Stay down," he shouted to Empress Hana. The attackers regrouped and pushed into the station. Taemin fired the neural disruptor, trying to make each shot count. He hit one attacker in the leg, dropping him. But there were too many, and the small space worked against him. A flash grenade flew through the door. Taemin kicked it back out before it detonated. The explosion was muffled, but still bright enough to see through the foam. 2 minutes. The attackers changed tactics. Instead of pushing through the door, they started shooting through it. Energy blasts filled the security station, tearing through equipment and walls. Taemin dragged Empress Hana behind the environmental control panel, the only solid cover available. "They are going to kill us both," she said quietly. "Not yet, they are not," Taemin replied. He leaned out and fired twice, forcing the attackers to stay cautious. His captured weapon was at half charge. Maybe 30 shots left. Against 14 attackers, that was not enough. That he needed to change the situation. Tae-min looked at the environmental control panel. An idea formed in his mind, desperate and dangerous. He pulled up the local atmosphere controls. The security station had its own air supply, separate from the main hall. If he vented it and then repressurized rapidly, the pressure change would be violent. "Hold on to something," he told Empress Hana, "and take a deep breath." Before she could ask why, he triggered the vent. The air rushed out of the security station in a howl. The pressure drop was instant and painful. Taemin's ears popped and his lungs burned. The attackers outside stumbled as air rushed past them into the vacuum. Then Taemin hit the emergency repressurization. Air flooded back in at high speed. The pressure wave was like an invisible hammer, throwing attackers backward. Taemin pushed through the damaged door while they were down. He fired the neural disruptor at every target he could see. 3 attackers went down before the weapon ran dry. He threw it at a 4th attacker's head and ran back into the security station. 1 minute. The remaining attackers were angry now. They had lost half their team to one human. Taemin could hear them arguing outside, their translated voices mixing together. Just kill them both. No, we need the Empress alive for the message. Then kill the human and take her. Taemin looked at Empress Hana. She was pale but calm. You should leave me, she said. You could escape through the maintenance shaft. She pointed to a small panel in the ceiling. I'm not leaving you. I am ordering you to survive. With respect. Your Majesty, I do not take orders from you. I take orders from my conscience. Despite everything, she smiled slightly. Humans are very stubborn. Yes, we are. The attackers came in force this time, all together. 8 of them pushed through the door simultaneously, weapons firing. There was no more room for tactics or clever tricks. This was just violence and determination. Taemin grabbed a piece of broken furniture and threw it at the first attacker. He ducked under a neural blast and punched the second attacker in the throat. He fought with everything he had, using fists and elbows and knees and teeth. But they were trained soldiers too, and they outnumbered him. A neural blast hit his leg, and he went down. Another hit his shoulder. The stimulant was wearing off, and the pain came flooding back worse than before. An attacker pointed his weapon at Taemin's head. Stay down, human. Taemin tried to rise, but his body would not respond. The neural damage was too much. He could barely move his arms. The lead attacker stepped over him and reached for Empress Hana. She backed against the wall, defiant even in fear. Your Majesty, the attacker said through his translator. You are coming with us. The coalition needs to learn that humans bring only chaos. From the floor, Taemin saw the attacker grab Empress Hana's arm. He saw her struggle. He saw that he had failed, but he had not failed yet. With the last of his strength, Taemin grabbed the attacker's ankle. He could not fight anymore. He could barely hold on, but he held on anyway. Let go, human. The attacker snarled. Taemin's answer was to hold tighter. The attacker kicked him in the ribs. Taemin felt something break. He kept holding. Another kick. Blood filled Taemin's mouth. He kept holding. The attacker raised his weapon to shoot Taemin point blank. Through dimming vision, Taemin saw the weapon power up. This was it. This was the end. Then the security station's wall exploded inward. Human rapid response troops poured through the breach, their armor gleaming, their weapons already firing. The attackers were caught completely off guard. The fight was over in seconds. Taemin felt someone lifting him. A medic's face appeared above him, saying words he could not understand. The world was fading to gray. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Empress Hana. She was safe. She was alive. He had kept his promise. Taemin woke to the sound of machines beeping. His first thought was that he was still in the security station, still fighting. His body tensed and pain shot through every nerve. Easy, a calm voice said. You are safe. You are in the medical wing. His eyes focused slowly. A Valaran doctor stood beside his bed, her multiple hands adjusting the medical equipment. Through the window, he could see a cord prime still spinning in space. He was alive. How long? He managed to ask. 3 days, the doctor replied. You suffered severe neural damage, broken ribs, internal bleeding, and exhaustion. Honestly, you should be dead. Human biology is tougher than we thought. Taemin tried to sit up. The doctor pushed him back down gently but firmly. The Empress? He asked. Alive and well, thanks to you. She has been here several times to check on you. Also, there are about 50 reporters outside waiting to speak with you. And the Coalition Council has called an inquiry. The doctor's expression softened. You are a hero, Private Taemin. The whole galaxy watched what you did. Watched? The doctor activated a screen on the wall. It showed footage from the security station's cameras. Taemin watched himself fighting against impossible odds. He saw himself get knocked down and still hold onto the attacker's ankle. The image froze on that moment, his broken body refusing to let go. "This image is everywhere now," the doctor said. "From Earth to the far colonies." The human who would not run. The next few days passed in a blur. Taemin was confined to the medical wing, but the outside world kept intruding. Ambassador Hyen visited and thanked him personally. Junior diplomats brought him messages of support from Earth. Even some of the coalition guards, who had fled the banquet, came to apologize. Though their shame was clear in every word, Captain Ji-won did not visit. On the 5th day, Taemin was finally allowed out of bed. His body still hurt, but the doctor said he would recover fully. Human healing was apparently faster than most species expected. That same day, the inquiry began. The Coalition Council chamber was enormous, with seating for representatives from 60 different species. Taemin sat at a small table in the center, wearing his dress uniform. Every eye in the room was on him. The inquiry was officially about security protocols during the attack on Accord Prime. But everyone knew what it was really about. It was politics. The first witness was Captain Ji-won. He walked to the witness stand with his head held high. But Taemin could see the fear in his eyes. "Captain Ji-won," the head counselor began, "please describe the events of the banquet attack." Ji-won cleared his throat. The attack was sudden and overwhelming. The use of toxic gas combined with neural weapons created a situation that was impossible to defend against. My security team followed proper evacuation protocols for a chemical attack. We attempted to establish a perimeter, but were forced to retreat by superior enemy forces. "Superior enemy forces," the counselor repeated. Yet one human private managed to hold those forces off for several minutes while protecting Empress Hana. "How do you explain this?" Ji-won's face tightened. Private Taemin acted bravely but recklessly. He ignored evacuation orders and put himself and the Empress at greater risk. If the rescue team had arrived even 30 seconds later, both would have died. His actions, while visually impressive, were not tactically sound. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Several counselors looked angry at Ji-won's words. "Are you saying Private Taemin should have abandoned Empress Hana?" Another counselor asked. "I am saying he should have followed proper procedures," Ji-won replied stiffly. The questioning continued. Other guards testified, each one trying to justify why they had run. They spoke of overwhelming force, of impossible odds, of tactical necessity. But their words sounded hollow after everyone had seen the security footage. Then came a surprise witness. Commander Bora, the Empress's security chief, entered the chamber. She had been unconscious during most of the attack, but she had reviewed all the evidence. "Private Taemin saved my life," she stated clearly. "When the neural weapons hit us, I fell immediately. My species is very vulnerable to that kind of attack. I would have been killed when the attackers entered the hall. But Taemin's stand drew their attention away from the fallen. He gave me and others time to recover. By the time I regained consciousness, human troops had arrived and secured the area. Without Taemin's actions, the casualties would have been far higher." She turned to look at Taemin directly. He did what all of us should have done. He protected those who could not protect themselves. I am ashamed that I fell so easily. But I am grateful that humanity sent someone with real courage. The chamber fell silent. Commander Bora's testimony carried weight. She was a decorated officer with 40 years of service. Ambassador Hyen testified next, speaking about Taemin's early warnings about the environmental sabotage. He presented the reports that Taemin had filed, the ones that Captain Ji-won had ignored. "If this soldier had been listened to," Ambassador Hyen said quietly, "the attack might have been stopped before it began. Instead, his warnings were dismissed because he was young, because he was human. because he was not part of the established order. The questioning went on for hours. Taemin himself was called to testify. He walked to the witness stand on legs that still trembled slightly. "Private Taemin," the head counselor said, "did you believe you would survive when you chose to protect Empress Hana?" Taemin thought about lying, about giving some heroic answer. But he decided on truth. "No, sir. I thought I would probably die. Then why did you stay?" "Because someone had to. Because she needed help. Because running away felt wrong." He paused. "My grandmother always said that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about doing what is right, even when you are terrified." "Were you terrified?" "Yes, sir. The whole time." The counselor nodded slowly. "One more question. Do you believe the other security guards were cowards for retreating?" Taemin considered carefully. "No, sir. They were doing what their training told them to do. Evacuation in the face of chemical attack is logical. But sometimes logic is not enough. Sometimes you need to look past what makes sense and do what is necessary." The inquiry continued into a second day. Experts analyzed the attack, the weapons used, the tactics employed. The attackers were identified as members of the Purity Front, a radical group that believed humans were corrupting the coalition. They had wanted to kill Empress Hana as punishment for supporting humanity. On the third day, as the inquiry was preparing to close, something unexpected happened. Empress Hana herself entered the chamber. Protocol did not require her testimony. She was the victim, not a witness to her own defense. But she came anyway, walking with quiet dignity to the center of the floor. "I wish to speak," she announced. The head counselor looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, Your Majesty. The chamber recognizes Empress Hana of Valoran." She stood in the center of the great chamber and spoke in a voice that needed no amplification. "I have heard 3 days of testimony about protocols and procedures, about what should have been done according to regulations and training. I have heard guards justify their retreat with tactical reasoning. I have heard questions about whether one soldier's courage was foolish or necessary." She paused and looked around the chamber. "I will tell you what I know. I know that when poison filled the air and weapons cut down defenders, I saw every guard run except one. I know that this one soldier came toward me when everyone else ran away. I know that he was hurt again and again but refused to fall. I know that when he could not stand, he still would not let them take me." Her voice grew stronger. "Every guard in that hall had the same choice. Every guard had the same duty. Only the human remembered what duty actually means. You want to question his tactics? His methods? His choice to ignore evacuation protocols? I will tell you something simple. He was right, and everyone else was wrong." The chamber erupted. Some counselors shouted in agreement. Others argued back. It took several minutes for order to be restored. When silence finally returned, Empress Hana spoke again. This time in English, learned specifically for this moment. "Private Taemin, please stand." Taemin rose from his chair, confused. Empress Hana walked to him and removed a medallion from around her neck. It was the Star of Valoran, her empire's highest honor. "This has never been given to an outsider," she said. "Today that changes. For courage beyond measure, for loyalty beyond duty, for proving that true strength lies not in power but in choice, I award you the Star of Valoran." She placed the medallion around his neck. The chamber fell completely silent. Then, slowly, Ambassador Hyen began to clap. Commander Bora joined him. One by one, others in the chamber stood and applauded. Even some of the counselors who had questioned Taemin's actions rose to their feet. Captain Ji-won remained seated, his face red with shame. The inquiry ended shortly after. The verdict was clear. Private Taemin had acted with exceptional valor and judgment. He was cleared of all questions about protocol violations and instead recommended for promotion and commendation. Captain G1 was quietly reassigned to a desk position. He would never lead security operations again, but the real verdict was not about one soldier or one captain. It was about humanity itself. The vote on SHIELD technology access, scheduled for after the inquiry, passed with overwhelming support. Even former opponents voted yes. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of. Not in conquest or war, but in simple corruptive years passed like water flowing around stone. The galaxy changed in ways both large and small, and Taemin was at the center of those changes, whether he wanted to be or not. The promotion came first. Private became lieutenant in a ceremony attended by representatives from 30 coalition species. Taemin wore his new rank and the Star of Valoran and felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He was just a soldier who had done his job. But the galaxy seemed to disagree. The second change was the Accord Initiative. Empress Hana proposed that 3 months after the attack, the coalition security forces would be completely reformed, with human military doctrine at its foundation. The old ways of treating security as ceremonial duty would end. Real training, real preparation, real dedication would replace comfort and tradition. For 30 years, peace made us soft, Empress Hana said in her address to the Coalition Council. We forgot that peace must be protected. We forgot that duty means sacrifice. One human soldier remembered for all of us. Now we must learn from him. Taemin was assigned as a special advisor to the initiative. He spent his days teaching alien officers about human military principles. He taught them about courage under fire, about protecting others even at personal cost, about the importance of paying attention to warnings from junior personnel. The lessons were hard for many to accept. Species that had served in security forces for decades were told their methods were inadequate. Pride was wounded. Arguments erupted. Some commanders resigned rather than change, but slowly, grudgingly, the initiative took hold. Human and alien soldiers began training together. Mixed species teams became standard. The doctrine of never leave someone behind spread through coalition forces like fire through dry grass. Young recruits from a dozen different species memorized the story of the human who stood when others ran. Tae-min found it strange to be a legend while still alive to see it. Cadets would ask him to sign their training manuals. Fellow soldiers would stare when he walked past. Once, he found a group of young Valoran recruits practicing exactly how he had held on to that attacker's ankle, turning desperation into technique. He told them it was not technique, just stubbornness. They did not believe him. Commander Bora became one of the initiative's strongest supporters. She visited Taemin often, bringing questions and ideas. They became friends in the way soldiers do, bound by shared danger and mutual respect. I reviewed my actions that day 1,000 times, she told him once. I see now that I was comfortable, secure in my position, confident in my experience. The neural weapon hit me, and I fell because I was not ready to face real danger. You were ready because you never assumed safety. I was just paranoid, Taemin said. Paranoid keeps you alive, Bora replied. Comfortable gets you killed. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some coalition members resented humanity's growing influence. The Purity Front, though broken by the attack's failure, still had supporters. There were protests, angry speeches, and claims that humans were militarizing the coalition. Empress Hana faced these critics directly. We are not militarizing. We are remembering. We are learning. And if some find that threatening, perhaps they should ask themselves why the idea of courage and duty makes them uncomfortable. 3 years after the attack, a surprising development occurred. Sunwoo, the Empress's advisor, who Taemin had saved alongside her, resigned from his diplomatic position. He joined the military, entering officer training at the age of 43. "You showed me something," Sunwoo told Taemin when they met again at the training academy. "You showed me that being useful in crisis matters more than being comfortable in peace. I spent 20 years giving advice in safe rooms. I want to spend the next 20 being ready to protect others when advice is not enough." Sunwoo struggled with the physical training, but excelled at tactics and leadership. He graduated in the top 10% of his class. Taemin, now Commander Taemin, attended his ceremony. They were assigned to the same unit shortly after. A mixed-species rapid response team designed to handle humanitarian crises across coalition space. Taemin commanded the team. Sunwoo was his second officer. The rest of the team included soldiers from 8 different species, all trained in the new doctrine. On a cold morning 5 years and 2 months after the attack, their team received a distress call. A colony world called Haven's Rest was experiencing catastrophic flooding after a dam failure. Thousands of colonists needed immediate evacuation. The team deployed within minutes. Their ship, the Accord's Promise, was fast and well-equipped. Taemin stood on the bridge watching Haven's Rest grow larger in the viewport. "First real mission for this team," Sunwoo said beside him. "Nervous?" "Always," Taemin admitted. "But ready." Haven's Rest was chaos when they arrived. The flooding had come faster than predicted. Whole districts were underwater. Colonists clung to rooftops and tall buildings. Local emergency services were overwhelmed. Taemin's team split into search and rescue units. They worked for 18 straight hours, pulling people from rising waters, treating injuries, coordinating evacuations. It was exhausting work, dangerous work, important work. At one point, Taemin found himself in a flooded apartment building. The water was up to his chest and rising. His scanner detected life signs on the upper floor, but the stairs had collapsed. A young Valorn soldier named Dan was with him. She looked at the gap where the stairs had been and shook her head. "We cannot reach them. We should move to the next building." Taemin studied the situation. There was a broken water pipe that could serve as a climbing route. It would be dangerous. The building was unstable. "Someone is up there," he said. "We do not leave people behind." Dan looked at him, and he saw understanding dawn in her eyes. This was what all the training was about. This moment right here. "I will go first," she said. "I am lighter." They climbed together, Taemin supporting Dan as she tested each handhold. The pipe groaned under their weight but held. They reached the upper floor and found an elderly human couple, too weak to evacuate on their own. Getting them down was harder than climbing up. The building shuddered twice, threatening to collapse. But Taemin and Dan moved carefully, supporting the couple between them. When they finally reached the rescue boat, Dan was shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline. "We did it," she said, amazed. "You did it," Taemin corrected. "You chose to climb when you could have walked away." The mission continued into a second day. Taemin's team saved 412 lives. Not one team member suggested retreat, even when the danger was high. Not one team member abandoned someone who needed help. When they finally returned to Accord Prime, Empress Hana was waiting. She had tracked the mission personally, watching reports as they came in. "Walk with me, Commander," she said to Tae-Min. They walked through the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. It was the same view Taemin had seen 5 years ago, standing guard as a nervous private who no one would listen to. "Do you remember what I asked you?" Empress Hana said. "In the security station, when we thought we would die. I asked why you stayed. I remember. You said, because someone needed help. Because that is what humans do. I have thought about those words every day since." She turned to face him. "I was wrong in my assessment. It is not what humans do. It is what you taught us all to do. Courage is not a species trait. It is a choice. You showed us that choice is possible. Taemin looked at this Empress who had become a friend, who had risked her political capital to change an entire civilization's approach to duty and service. Do you ever regret that day? He asked, supporting the SHIELD technology agreement, being there when the attack came. Never, she said firmly. That day cost me comfort and security, but it gave me something more valuable. It gave me truth. It showed me what we had become in our long peace. Soft, complacent, willing to abandon duty for safety. She smiled. You gave that back to us. Not through speeches or politics, but through simple action. You stood. Everyone else ran. That made all the difference. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from the station. Finally, Empress Hana spoke again. Your team did well on Haven's Rest. The Council is discussing creating more units like yours. Permanent rapid response teams, mixed species, ready to deploy anywhere help is needed. They want you to help build them. That would be an honor. It would be work, she corrected. Hard, exhausting, sometimes thankless work. But important work. The best kind, Taemin said. Years continued to pass. The rapid response program expanded. More teams were created, each one carrying the same philosophy. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Never run when someone needs help. Make the hard choice because it is right, not because it is easy. Taemin trained hundreds of soldiers from dozens of species. Some became legends in their own right. Stories spread of coalition teams doing impossible things, saving lives against terrible odds. Each story traced back to that one moment 5 years ago, when a young human private refused to run, on the 10th anniversary of the attack. A memorial was unveiled at Accord Prime. It showed a simple scene. A soldier standing between danger and those he protected. No face was visible because it was not about one person. It was about a choice anyone could